Hello, everyone. Welcome to Learn English podcast.
How to go from beginner to fluent in English in 6 months. Learn English through podcast. Becoming fluent in English within just 6 months may sound like an impossible dream, but with the power of modern technology, and especially with the daily use of podcasts, it is not only possible, it is achievable for every young person who is serious, motivated, and willing to dedicate consistent effort. And if you are a young learner listening to this right now, I want you to understand that you are living in the best time in history to learn a language. Because decades ago, people could only rely on grammar books, boring classroom lectures, and the occasional chance to meet a native speaker. But now, you have an unlimited supply of real English voices, conversations, and stories available at your fingertips through podcasts, audiobooks, and online platforms. And if you commit yourself fully for 6 months, you can go from being a beginner who struggles with basic words and sentences to someone who can listen, speak, and think in English with confidence. And this transformation is not magic, it is not luck. It is simply the result of a focused plan combined with the discipline of using podcasts and active learning every single day. And I want you to imagine yourself 6 months from now, listening to a podcast without subtitles, understanding jokes, expressions, and stories without confusion, speaking to people without hesitation, writing messages and emails in English without fear, and most importantly, feeling proud of yourself because you decided to use technology wisely and you turned your dream into reality. And the question is, how do you achieve this? How do you go from beginner to fluent in such a short time? And the answer begins with one word: immersion. Because the human brain learns languages not by memorizing rules, but by listening, repeating, and using the language constantly, just like a baby learns their first language. And podcasts are the perfect tool for immersion because they provide you with real voices, natural conversations, different accents, and a wide range of vocabulary every single day. And unlike traditional lessons, you can listen anytime, anywhere, whether you are walking, exercising, sitting in class, or even before going to bed. And every minute you spend listening is another brick in the foundation of your fluency. And the secret is consistency, because 6 months may sound short, but 6 months of daily, focused, consistent podcast learning can equal years of traditional study. And that is why young people who commit to this method can see results so fast, because they are giving their brain the kind of input it truly needs. Now let's go deeper, because if you were starting as a beginner, you might feel overwhelmed by fast English speech. You might not understand everything at first, but that is perfectly normal. And the key is to start with podcasts designed for learners, podcasts that use slower, clearer English with simple vocabulary. And as you listen day after day, your ears will adapt, your brain will recognize patterns, and words that once felt strange will become familiar. And then you will slowly move to podcasts with faster, more natural English. And this progression is what pushes you from beginner to intermediate and then to fluent. And you must remember that fluency is not about understanding every single word. It is about understanding the overall meaning, the message, the story. And once you train your brain to focus on meaning instead of obsessing over details, your listening skills will skyrocket. And as your listening improves, your speaking will naturally follow, because speaking is simply the reflection of what you have heard thousands of times. And this is why podcasts are so powerful. They give you the input you need so your brain can produce output naturally. And this is the same way children learn. They listen for years before they speak, and when they finally speak, they don't think about grammar rules. They simply repeat the patterns they have heard. And if you surround yourself with podcasts for 6 months, you will experience that same transformation. But listening alone is not enough. You must also engage with what you hear. And this is where active learning comes in. Because passive listening, like letting the podcast play in the background while you do something else, is helpful but limited, while active listening means focusing fully, repeating out loud, shadowing the speakers, writing down new words, and using them in your own sentences. And this active engagement is what accelerates your progress. And here's a powerful daily routine you can follow. In the morning, listen to a 15 to 30-minute podcast episode while reading the transcript if available. Underline or highlight new words, pause and repeat difficult sentences, then try to shadow the speaker by speaking at the same time. And later in the day, listen again without the transcript, testing how much you remember. And in the evening, review the new words and record yourself using them in sentences. And if you do this routine every single day for 6 months, your listening comprehension will explode, your pronunciation will improve, and your vocabulary will grow naturally. And the best part is that you will not only learn English, you will also learn about new topics, cultures, and ideas. Because podcasts cover everything from business to science to personal growth, so you are improving your language and your knowledge at the same time, which makes the journey even more exciting. And let me tell you this, podcasts also train you in one of the most important but often ignored aspects of fluency, rhythm and intonation. Because English is not just about words, it is about how those words are spoken, the music of the language, the rise and fall of the voice, the way emotions are expressed. And when you listen to podcasts every day, you start to copy not just the words, but the rhythm, the melody, and the emotion. And when you speak, you sound more natural, more confident, more fluent, and people understand you more easily. And this is something grammar books cannot teach you, only real voices can. And podcasts give you unlimited real voices. And if you are serious about going from beginner to fluent in 6 months, you must also understand the importance of repetition, because the brain learns best through repeated exposure. So do not be afraid to listen to the same podcast episode many times, because the first time you listen, you may only understand 30%. The second time, maybe 50%. The third time, 70%. And by the fourth or fifth time, you will be surprised at how much you understand. And this builds confidence because you start to realize that English is not impossible. It just takes exposure and practice. And the more familiar your brain becomes with the sounds of English, the less effort it takes to understand, until one day you realize you're listening without translating, without struggling, just understanding naturally. And that moment is the beginning of fluency. And that is why podcasts are perfect, because unlike live conversations, you can replay them as many times as you want, and every replay strengthens your understanding and memory. And soon the words that were once strange become part of your active vocabulary. And when you hear them again in another context, you instantly recognize them. And this recognition builds fluency layer by layer. But listening is only half the journey, because to truly go from beginner to fluent in 6 months, you must also use your voice. And this is where podcasts give you a golden opportunity to practice speaking through a technique called shadowing, which means you listen to a sentence and immediately repeat it at the same time as the speaker, copying their pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation as closely as possible. And at first, this will feel difficult, maybe even frustrating, but if you practice every day, your mouth will get used to forming English sounds, your tongue will learn the correct positions, and your voice will start to sound more natural. And the beauty of shadowing is that you are not just practicing random words, you are practicing real English sentences spoken by native speakers, which means you are training your brain to speak in patterns, not isolated vocabulary. And this is exactly how fluency develops, because fluency is not about knowing many words, it is about being able to use the right words in the right patterns without hesitation. And shadowing is one of the fastest ways to achieve that. And the best part is you can do it anytime, anywhere, whether you are at home, in your room, or even walking outside with earphones, and no one needs to hear you. It's just you and the podcast building fluency day by day. Now let's talk about vocabulary, because one of the main reasons beginners feel stuck is that they do not know enough words to express themselves. But the good news is that podcasts are one of the richest sources of natural vocabulary because they are full of real-life conversations, expressions, idioms, and phrases that people actually use, not just the artificial sentences you find in textbooks. And the way to master vocabulary through podcasts is simple. When you hear a new word, write it down, check its meaning, then try to use it in your own sentence, and later listen for it again in another podcast. And every time you see or hear it, the memory becomes stronger. And within a few days or weeks, it becomes part of your active vocabulary. And what makes this process powerful is that you are not just memorizing lists, you are learning words in context, in sentences, in stories, which means you understand how they are used, and that makes it easier to use them yourself. And if you aim to learn and use just 10 new words every day from podcasts, in 6 months, you will know over 1,800 new words, and that is enough to take you from beginner to fluent. And another key point is that podcasts expose you to different accents and speaking styles, which is very important for fluency, because English is a global language spoken in many different ways. And if you only listen to one accent, for example, American English, you may struggle when you hear British, Australian, or even Indian English. But podcasts give you the chance to listen to all kinds of voices, male and female, young and old, fast and slow, and this trains your ears to adapt. So no matter who you are speaking to, you can understand them. And this flexibility is one of the secrets of true fluency. And by the end of 6 months, if you have been listening to a wide range of podcasts, you will not only understand different accents, you will also be able to speak more clearly because your brain has absorbed a variety of speech patterns, and that makes your communication skills much stronger.
And let me remind you, the journey from beginner to fluent in 6 months is not just about listening and speaking. It is also about mindset, because many young learners give up too quickly. They expect results in a few days, and when they don't see instant improvement, they feel discouraged. But I want you to remember this. Language learning is like planting a seed. You water it every day, you don't see growth immediately, but after weeks and months, the seed becomes a strong tree. And podcasts are like the water for your English. The more you listen, the more you grow, even if you don't see it day by day. And then suddenly, one day you notice you are understanding a podcast that once felt impossible. And you realize you are speaking with confidence. And that is the reward for your consistency. So never give up. Keep going, trust the process, and you will see the results. And here is another powerful strategy for 6-month fluency. Combine podcasts with recording your own voice. Because one of the fastest ways to improve is to listen to yourself, even though at first it may feel uncomfortable. But when you record yourself shadowing a podcast, then play it back and compare it with the original, you immediately hear the difference, and you can adjust your pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. And every time you do this, your speaking improves. And after a few weeks, you will be shocked at how much more natural you sound. And this technique is especially powerful for young learners because your brain and mouth are still flexible, and the more you practice now, the faster you will develop a fluent accent. And if you truly want to maximize the power of podcasts in 6 months, you should also create an environment of immersion, which means surrounding yourself with English as much as possible. And podcasts make this easy because you can fill every spare moment with English. Instead of music in your own language, listen to English podcasts. Instead of silence while you cook, clean, or travel, listen to English podcasts. And the more hours you expose your brain to English, the faster your brain adapts. And if you listen for 2 or 3 hours every day, by the end of 6 months, you will have listened for more than 300 to 500 hours, which is enough to completely transform your listening and speaking ability. And this is exactly how children learn. They hear thousands of hours of their language before they become fluent. And you can do the same with English by using podcasts as your daily background and active study tool. In conclusion, going from beginner to fluent in English in just 6 months is not only possible, it is within your reach if you commit yourself to consistent daily practice using podcasts. Because podcasts give you real voices, real conversations, and real learning anytime, anywhere. And when you combine listening, shadowing, repeating, recording your voice, learning new vocabulary, and immersing yourself fully in English, your brain adapts, your confidence grows, and your fluency becomes natural. And I want you, as a young learner, to remember that it is not about luck. It is not about talent. It is about consistency, discipline, and using the incredible tools available today. So start today. Commit yourself to 6 months of focused learning, and in just half a year, you will be amazed at how much you understand, how naturally you speak, and how far your English has come. And when that happens, you will realize that the power to transform your life was always in your hands. And the key was simply to listen, practice, and never give up.